Hi everybody and welcome to the What's New webinar for the latest version of Mission Control. Version 1.62 will be available from the App Exchange as of the 14th of October 2022. So let's just jump in and take a look at the new features that we've got coming. So first of all, just to let everybody know that the resource forecasting beta that we released earlier this year will, as of this release, be considered generally available. Some additional features that we're adding in are a new billing type that allows you to raise an initial deposit invoice and then automatically move over to periodic time and materials. We have a new Create Milestones page similar to the Create Actions page. We've had a few customers ask for the ability to automatically round up or down the time log decimals, so we've added that feature in, and there's also the ability to add in specified dates for individual contributors. We've enhanced the probability and impact ratings on the risk object, expanding the risk score options. Minor enhancements to the retrospective board, a number of enhancements to the timesheet that we'll walk you through, and then a few minor enhancements as well. So diving into a bit more detail, let's take a look at the billing type. So this scenario allows you to raise an initial deposit invoice, and then when you're logging time and expenses against that project, if the initial deposit has room left in the amount remaining, the time log and expense will automatically be added to the initial deposit, and then eventually when that deposit invoice all gets used up, you'll automatically transition to periodic time and materials. The Create Milestones page, very similar to the Create Actions page, allowing you to quickly create new milestones, do a bulk edit of existing milestones. So that's available from the project overview page, and you can add and remove custom fields from that as required as well. So time log decimal rounding, so you've got four options here. So for example, if I log some time and it's like 1.12, the decimal rounding setting can be used and applied to that to automatically round to my specified value. So for example, you can see on the screen there, you can round down to the nearest hour, you can round up to the nearest hour, or you can round to the nearest quarter of an hour or the nearest half hour. So if I had it set to 0.25 and I logged some time of 1.12, that would automatically round that to 1.25. Another example might be if I log time of 1.8, that would automatically round it to 2 hours. So contributor dates. So previously, when you were adding a contributor to support an action owner working on an action, it would be assumed that that contributor was going to be assigned to that action for the duration from the start date to the end date of the action. Now you have the ability to optionally specify start and end dates for individual contributions, and as you can see on the example here, that so I've got Bethany working on the action for 4 days, but then Ben is working on he's been specified to work on only for two days. So that's an option that you can turn on within the resource assignment wizard. One thing to note there, that if you are using the role allocation automation settings, you will need to go in and update your field history tracking on the contributor object to make sure these new start date and end date fields are being tracked. Risks. So the overall risk score has been changed. So previously the probability rating and the impact rating both had three options of high, medium, and low. For both of those fields, we've just added in a very high and a very low option, moving that from a 3x3 matrix to a 5x5. So just giving you a broader spectrum on how to assess your risks. Retroboard has had a few minor enhancements. So the column header previously used to be fixed to the values of worked well, needs improvement, try next, puzzles us, if you are using the opinion. And now if you had previously gone in and added another pick list value to that opinion field, an additional column wouldn't have appeared on the retro board. So that's now dynamically going to be, the columns will now be dynamically populated based on the exact values that you've added into the opinion field. You also have the ability to apply some custom filters, and you can also add custom fields to be visible on the individual learning cards as well. Number of enhancements being added to the timesheet. So again, previously, if someone was a contributor, the fact that the action would appear on their timesheet would be driven by the values set on the individual action as to whether it had been set to be excluded from the timesheet or not. So there's now a new field, a new set of fields on the contributor directly where you can specify, does that individual contributor want to have this excluded from the timesheet? Added in a few very quick buttons, navigation buttons around the date, so you don't always have to select the date and click go. You can just click backwards and forwards to move from one week to the next. You can also add in custom fields on the time log summary modal. The time log information modal now supports a feature where you can save an existing time log and immediately go and create a new time log as well. So for example, if you're wanting to record two separate time log entries for the same action for the same day, this feature will allow you to do that. And the final enhancement there is the ability to actually reduce the hours that you've logged on an individual action for an individual day directly from the timesheet without having to go into that time log summary modal. A few minor enhancements there. The add action component that is available on the Lightning Experience utility bar and via the trackpad, that now offers the ability to add and change which fields appear in that component based on a field set on the action object. So you now have control over which fields appear in that add action component. And we've added in a number of validation rules to the time log object. So first one being you can prevent a time log hours completed field being set to a negative value. You can prevent time logs from being associated to a billing event item if the billing event that it relates to has already had the status set to issued. Another one, you can prevent the time log hours completed value being changed if it relates to a billing event that's already been issued. And to support the new billing type that we're adding in, you can prevent a time log hours completed from being changed if it relates to a billing event where the deposit field equals true. Okay, so a few things to get through here. So what we're going to do is jump in and start taking a look around. So we're going to be taking a look at the new billing type, which is referred to as the deposit to T&M billing type. So this is a new billing type that has been added to the project, and basically allows you to raise initial deposit invoices, and then once you've used up that money, you can automatically switch over to time and materials. So just walk you through an example here. I've got a project where I'm building a website for this customer. I'm just going to jump in to the edit page just to show you I've used the deposit to T&M billing type value. So what I've also done, if I scroll down, you'll see that I have also set my billing cycle to be periodic. I'm setting my frequency to monthly, setting my payment terms, and then when I want my first periodic billing process to run. So that's all set up to automatically start doing periodic billing at that time. Now, what I've also done is actually created so obviously the initial deposit billing event will get created manually. So I've come to my billing tab, created a new billing event. So you'll see here I've already got an initial deposit. If I expand that, you'll see it's just for one line item for a commencement payment, and I've received that money. So the key field on the actual billing event to indicate that this is a deposit is the deposit checkbox. This is a new field that's been added to the billing event. So ultimately, what happens when you start logging time or expenses against your project, it will identify that it is a deposit to T&M project, and it will look at the deposit invoices that you've already got and basically assess, is there sufficient balance remaining on these deposits to allocate this time log or this expense to the to that deposit invoice. Otherwise, if it's not, we would need to flag it to be invoiced in the next periodic billing process. So it works slightly different for expenses and time logs. So an expense will either be allocated in its entirety to a deposit invoice, or it will be flagged to be included in the next periodic process. A time log can actually be split. So if there is some room available on the deposit invoice, but not enough for the entire value of the time log being created, then that time log will basically be split into two. The amount that can be allocated to the deposit will be done so, and then the balance will be flagged to be included in the next periodic billing. So just to take a look at this, that in a bit more detail from a time log perspective, if I take a look at my billing event item, you'll see that the amount is for $2,000. If I take a look, I've already got two time logs, so I've got 7 hours against these now. My billing, I'm using a standard billing rate of $2,000 a day, which obviously works out at 250 per hour. So 7 hours, that means I've accounted for 1,750 of my $2,000. So if I was to go and log 1 hour, that would get allocated to this because there's sufficient balance remaining on this. If I was to log 2 or 3 hours, then that would get split. So what we're going to do is just jump onto our timesheet and log a 3 hour time log against this action, and that will be split, so it will end up becoming two separate time logs. So I'll just save that. Okay, so if I now take a look at the entry there, you can see, so rather than being one time log for 3 hours, it's actually split that out into two separate time logs. So if I just jump through to that action, and we'll take a look at those two separate time logs. You'll see that the 1 hour that has that the deposit invoice did have room for has automatically been marked as invoiced and has been associated to the billing event item relating to that billing event. The other 2 hours has been split off into a separate time log, and you'll see that it has been marked that it still needs to be to be invoiced. So ultimately, as I say, the expenses, we're not going to split expenses. They'll either be allocated to the deposit invoice, or they'll be marked to be flagged up in the next time and materials invoice. But the time logs will actually be split to make sure the full amount of the deposit invoice gets used up, and then anything remaining will get marked as needing to be invoiced. So we're going to take a look at the new Create Milestones page, which is accessible from the project record. So it's similar to the Create Actions page in that it allows you to quickly create new milestones, as well as accessing any existing milestones on the project and being able to do a bulk edit. So you can see here I'm on a project. It doesn't yet have any milestones. So what I can do is open up my Create Actions page here. So as I say, similar layout to the Create Actions. Obviously, you've got the ability to display existing milestones. You can add new one at a time or multiple using the button and the numbers down here, or you can use the Quick Create. And so first of all, I'm going to create my first milestone. So it might be design. I'm going to allocate my milestone owner, and then I'm just going to add in a couple of others. So first, then after the design, we'll do the build, and after the build, we'll do the delivery. So obviously, just by hitting enter, it's adding in the additional rows, and then they're available for me to then go in and add some more information. So I can fill in as much or as little of as many or as few of the fields as I need to. So you'll see obviously I've got things like the status, milestone budget, type, deadline name. I can adjust the sort order. And if I keep scrolling over, you can see there's a number of different fields here. So if I click save, I'm just going to I've now quickly created my 3 different milestones on the project. So then I could obviously go off and create the actions. If I do need to come back in and make any changes, and I want to do that in bulk, so again, rather than having to go into each one individually, I'm able to click onto the create milestones button there, and that's going to, because I've got my toggle set to true to display existing actions, milestones, that will obviously preload any of my existing milestones, so that I can then make changes, make updates, and then click save. The other thing to note on the Create Milestones page is, so the milestone name and milestone owner will appear by default all the time, but you can choose which fields are visible for you on your page, and that's controlled via a field set. So so inside Salesforce Setup, on the within the Object Manager on the milestone object, if you go to the field sets, you'll see there is a create milestones field set. So you can go into there and pick and choose. So you might want to add in some of your own custom fields. You might want to remove some of the existing standard fields that are visible. So ultimately, you have control via that field set as to what appears on that create milestones page. So ultimately, hopefully, an efficient way of you creating new and maintaining existing milestones going forward. So we've had a few customers reach out and ask for the ability to set a specific default rounding on the decimal value of time logs. So what we've done on the control pad if I scroll down to the project automation settings, there's a new setting here that you can enable time log decimal rounding. So if you want to use this feature, you need to do 2 things. You need to set the field to true and then specify the value that you want to use. So the four options here are that you can set to round down to the nearest hour. So for example, if I was to log 1.2 hours, it would actually, when I save that, it will round it down to 1 hour. If I was to use this setting, it would actually round it up to 2 hours. This one would round it to the nearest quarter of an hour. So in that example, it would go from 1.2 to 1.25. And then this one would round it up to the nearest half hour. So again, 1.2 would round up to 1.5. If I was to do 1.7, that would round up to 2. So what I'm going to do is just set that to, just to demonstrate this, I'm going to set that to 0.25. So obviously enable the setting, set my value, click on save there. So once that's been done, I can open the timesheet and go and log some time. So if I come on to my action here, and I'm going to say I've just done 1.12 hours. So once I save that, that will automatically round up to 1.25. So you can see there it's immediately accepted the rounding. Another example, if I do 1.78, obviously that's over the 1.75 threshold, so we would be expecting this to round up to the next nearest 0.25, which would obviously take it to 2 hours. Okay, so relatively straightforward feature. It's available on the control pad for you to enable. Now, if it's not enabled, you're just going to be logging at the actual decimals that you capture. But then, if you are enabling that and specifying the rounding, then each of your time logs will be rounded to that value. So we have added in two new fields to the contributor object, basically a start date and an end date. So previously, when a contributor was assigned to an action, their involvement would assume to be spanning the entire duration of the action from based on the action's start date through to the end date. So now the contributor object has its own start and end dates, allowing you to optionally use them to specify the specific period of time individual contributors will be assigned to work on an action. So if you need to assign a contributor to a specific date range, then you can do so. Otherwise, if you don't need to use that feature, you can leave it turned off, and the system will continue to assume that contributor has been allocated to the entire duration of the action. So you can use that feature within the resource assignment wizard. So I've got an example here where Bethany is working on this functional configuration action scheduled from the 11th of October through to the 14th of October. Now, if I want to pull another resource in to help with that, I don't necessarily need this other person to work for the entire duration. It might be that I only need them for a couple of days in the middle. So opening up the resource assignment wizard. So you'll see I've already got my date fields visible. Now I've enabled those by coming in as an individual user of the system into my resource assignment wizard and turned on the contributor dates. So if this is false, you won't see these date fields. Once it is true, you'll have visibility of them. So what I'm able to do is actually say, okay, well, I'm pulling in Ben as a contributor to help Bethany, but I'm only going to need him on the 12th and 13th of October. So previously, when I'm not defining the dates for the individual contributor, both the contributor and the action owner would be assigned across the entire duration. Now, when as a result of doing this, if I was to take a look at the scheduler, for example, I can see that Bethany is working on it for the rest of the week, whereas Ben is only working on it for the next 2 days. So if I was to reschedule this, Ben's contribution would still come with it, and actually only end up rescheduling for the same number of days, based on where they've been scheduled within that timeline. But obviously, giving me a more accurate reflection of when the individual contributors are allocated to those actions. So as I say, the main thing to note there is just enabling that setting within the resource assignment wizard so you have visibility of those fields. Even if you have visibility and you can continue to not use them. So any contributor record where those fields have been left blank, that person would be assumed to be working across the entire duration of the action. So the enhancement we've made to the assessment of risks has also come from a number of requests from customers. So previously there was a 3x3 matrix on which you could evaluate the probability and impact. So both the probability rating and the impact rating previously used to have 3 options of high, medium, and low. What we have now done is added in 2 additional values to both of those fields. I'll just jump into one and show you. So the probability rating and the impact rating now have 5 options of very high, high, medium, low, and very low. So that's for the impact, and same for the probability. So what that means is we've been able to move from a 3 by 3 matrix to a 5 by 5 matrix, ultimately providing a range of more extensive risk score options. So if I take a look at the risk matrix, you'll see now we can go right up to like a 5 by 5 matrix there. So giving you visibility and obviously being able to further classify those really high or those really low risks that you need to be keeping a track of. So the risk matrix will obviously just automatically adjust, and then the color coding within the project status report has also been updated. So if I just jump in and show you that, you'll see that the coloring of those risks has just changed slightly, just to give you the 5 different options. So if I scroll down to my risks there, you'll see you've got like high, medium, and low. If I just jump back in and include that very high, and I'll just set one to be very low. I'll just make sure that's included. I'll set that to very low, and I'll just include my very high one into the status report as well. You see, we've just got the different colouring of like the darker shades for the very low, and then the lighter shades for the high and low. So ultimately, the only thing that you'll really need to do is make sure that those very high and very low values are added to your probability rating and impact rating, and then everything else will provide you with that 5 by 5 matrix. So there's a few changes or enhancements that have been applied to the retrospective board. One being previously, the 4 columns of worked well, needs improvement, try next, and puzzles us, they're taken from the values of the opinion field on the learning object. But if you were to have added in another value into that field, then it wouldn't have automatically appeared as a column. So that now will happen. So for example, if I go to my learning object, I can see that I've got my 4 values here. Now I might want to put in a 5th value of things that we want to avoid. So I'm going to add that one in. And then if I just come back and refresh the page here, so you'll now see that I've got my avoid column as well, so I can keep a track of anything that I might want to make sure that we don't do going forward. Now, if I was to delete that value, then it would just disappear again. So now back to my 4 core values. So again, I'll just refresh that. So back to my 4 columns here. The other thing to note is we have included some custom field filters. So at the bottom of the filters there, you've now got the option to apply 2 custom fields, and the fields that you can select from are from the learning object, retrospective object, and the project object. So that's now available to provide you with further filter options. And then the final enhancement to the retro board is the ability to include custom fields on each of the learning cards. So for example, if I click into my settings modal here, I can now specify my additional fields to appear. So for example, I might want to know the name of the person that reported the individual thing, and I might also want to include the category. So if I just save that, you'll see that I've now got my reported by and the categories that it's been allocated to. If I want to reset that to not have those custom fields, simply click the reset button and they'll disappear. Okay, so we've got a number of enhancements that we've made to the timesheet. So we're just going to walk through each one at a time. So first one is so previously you could choose to exclude specific actions from appearing on the timesheet, and that could be controlled at the project level, the milestone level, or at the individual action level. But if you excluded that action, that would be excluded for everyone, the action owner and all of the individual contributors. So we came across scenarios where some people needed that action appearing on their timesheet as a contributor and others didn't need it on their timesheet. So what we've added in is fields similar to those that are on the action to specify whether the action is excluded from the timesheet, but they've been added to the individual contributor record as well. So right now you'll see that I am I'm a contributor on this design wireframes action, and it's currently set to appear on my timesheet. So if I go to that action and take a look, so you'll see that Ben is the action owner, and the settings on the action are false, so that will appear for both Ben and myself. What we want to do is actually say, well, Ben does want it to appear on his timesheet, but Colin doesn't want it on his timesheet. So what we can now do is go to the individual contributor record and just modify those settings. So if I scroll down, I'm just going to say, look, I want to exclude this action from my timesheet. So still keeping it available for Ben, for him to log time, but I've chosen to exclude it from my timesheet. So if I just jump back and refresh my timesheet, you'll see that that PayPal design wireframes action has been excluded for me. Next one is the navigation of dates. So previously, if you wanted to move from one week to another, you had to go in, select the date, click on the go button. That still works. So for example, if I want to go forward or back like 4 or 5 weeks at a time, I can do that. But if I'm just looking to navigate backwards and forwards 1 week, you've now got these navigation buttons. So if I want to click back to next week, so I can just click that button once. So it saves me having to click in to select the date, click to select the date, and then click to select go. So I can just quickly navigate backwards and forwards there. So the next enhancement is the time log summary modal. So if we click on the eye icon, obviously what this shows us is all of the individual time logs that have been logged across the duration of this week, and we can see key information here. These fields previously were fixed. What you can now do is control these fields via a field set. So on the time log object, there's a new field set called timesheet time log summary fields, and whatever is in there will appear in this modal. So giving you more control as to what information you display in this modal. So the next enhancement is the ability to add more than one time log for the same day, for the same action, without needing to save the timesheet. So previously, for example, if I wanted to log time here, so if let's say I wanted to log 2 hours and associate that to one, I might have had certain notes that I needed to add in for that 2 hours, or allocate that to a specific time log type or relate it to a particular checklist. So then if I needed to do another hour against another time log type or another checklist, I would have had to just create my 2 hours, click save, and then create the next time log. Now what I can do is, so I can come in here, enter 2, I can double click in there, I can add my value, but now rather than having to just click save and then save my timesheet, what I can do is click on this save a new button instead. So if I just put in have a meeting with client, and I've selected my time log type. So at this point, because I know I immediately want to create another time log for the same action for the same day, I'm going to click on this save a new button. So that immediately lets me come in here and say, okay, well, I've also done 1.5 hours here and travel to client site. So I'm going to associate that with a different time log type. So at this point, I can click save. So I've now got my 3.5 hours, which is made up of my two separate entries. I just haven't had to do a master save each time. I've been able to do all of that in one go. Now, the other option, the other enhancement to come with that is if I decide I'm going to change that to 4. So previously it would have always assumed that I was going to be adding a new half-hour time log. What I can do now is actually double click into that, and that will show me my existing time logs. So it gives me an option of adding the additional half an hour to one of my existing time logs for that day, or I can add a new one. So in this instance, I'm going to click Add New. So again, I can put in my notes, and I could allocate a time log type. So if I save that. So just to run through another option there, so if I say, actually, I'm going to change that to 5. Now, in this instance, I don't want to create a new time log. I want to add it to my existing documentation time log. So instead of clicking the Add New button, I'm going to click on this existing time log, and that will automatically add that additional hour to this time log for me. So again, click on Save, and then that's just updated that existing specific time log. So now if I was to look into my summary modal, I would see all of the separate time logs that I've created based on the time log type and so on. Okay, so the other enhancement that we've made to this timesheet, which is something that a number of clients have requested, is the ability to reduce the number of hours that I've logged directly from within the cell, rather than having to go into the time log summary and reduce them individually. So, for example, if I go back to my my Wednesday here, now I'm going to reduce this down to 4.5. What I can then do is double click into that, and then it tells me which of these would I like to remove that half an hour from. So I'm going to remove it from my travel to site time log. So if I click into that, so again, it's automatically applied the reduction, so going from 1.5 to 1. So I'll just save that change, save my timesheet. Now I've obviously been able to reduce that hour without having to go into the time log summary and editing the individual time log. So few different enhancements applied to the timesheet there. Hopefully you find them all useful. Okay, that covers off the deep dive into all of the new features. So let's take a look at when all of this is going to become available for you. So the release schedule, as normal, we obviously make it available on the App Exchange for you to go and manually upgrade. So that will be that will be available on the App Exchange from the 14th of October. A week later, so on the 22nd, we will be automatically upgrading all sandbox orgs, and then a week after that, on the 29th of October, we will be automatically upgrading all production orgs as well. So with that done, I would like to thank you for your time. As always, hope you enjoy the new functionality. And again, we would always love to hear from you around what you would like to see in the product next time round. Thanks for your time. Have a great day. Bye.